What are those?
They're props for my presentation.
Oh,
Because,
nice.
I know everyone is super fascinated by work orders and they're really going to be into this. But just in case not, I wanted to try to help people stay engaged.
I like it.
It's been a while since I've done any training presentations.
Okay, I am. Do I need remove? Nope, I do not want to remove. I guess I don't need to do anything special to enable your ability to present.
I don't think so. I think I can just click on present and pull up the PowerPoint.
All righty. Let's wait for everybody to join us. Oh. So jury duty was fun.
Are you done?
Technically, no, because I was an alternate. So they excused me and said I had to stay within 45 minutes of the courthouse. But unless they lose a juror, I guess I'm done. They said they would call me and tell me the outcome.
Oh, that's nice. So you're not always wondering.
Yeah, I had to look it up. I want to know.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't have to make that decision.
I served on a jury once. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was cool. I was actually very impressed with the level of professionalism and of everybody involved. It was a very efficient example of government.
It's fun to watch the process.
All right.
All right.
If anybody called in, this is ideally you'll come in with video. You don't necessarily need to put your camera on to see you, but you will need to see the screen. If for some reason you just absolutely can't do that, then I forwarded you the PowerPoint that Sarah's going to be going off of. Briefly, before I turn it over to Sarah, I would like to present something. Just to give you some context. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the home page for the new web portals. I'm still trying to get them to give us the capability to fill in this big white void. And there are some issues. This is the main menu over here. And one of the things that's new is requests. These are maintenance requests mainly. And whatever maintenance request gets generated here is going to result in the request being generated in Condo Manager. Also, the manager getting an email letting you know. And then the homeowner will be able to go in and see what the status is. So it's important that we all follow the same procedures, that all work orders go through Condo Manager, and also they get closed out and updated, so that when we start rolling out these web portals, people actually see what work has been done, and what the status is, as opposed to just seeing a bunch of pendings or nothing at all. I still am not sure about a lot of things having to do with this web portal, so don't expect a rollout anytime soon. But this kind of is background for one of the reasons why Sarah and company have worked on this procedure. And it's the overarching objective here is to get everybody on the same page and using the same process across the board. So with that, I give you Miss Sarah Ponsetti, Mrs. Sarah Ponsetti.
Oh yeah. Now I did bring props to try to keep everyone interested, but since I'm being recorded, I'm not going to wear them because who knows where
your camera is super low resolution. So
oh no, it's the fuzzy, it's the Google Meets. Is that any better? I can take it off the background, but you're not going to see me in a minute anyway. So I'm going to present my screen. Let's see. Maybe my camera's dirty. Oh. Yeah, I'm not going to waste time trying to figure that out right now. But yeah, thank you everyone. I'm sure you were all really, really excited when you heard that I was going to be talking about work orders for everyone, because I'm sure you all love process management and workflows as much as I do. And I'm sure you thought, wow, there's a huge problem with work orders. We definitely need to look at this and re-engineer the whole process. And of course, I'm being sarcastic. But I just want to talk you through kind of why it's important, where we're at, and hopefully where we can get to. And I want to thank Sean and Penny and Janine and Christine, all who spent time to talk with me a little bit to go through what they do and where they see pitfalls in our current process. But it's something that's pretty straightforward. So let me just jump in. And I'm going to explain it from the beginning, because hopefully this will be something useful for everyone involved, including new managers, new assistants, and administrative staff as we bring them on, which is something that this process will really allow for. So that said, one moment. All right. Can you guys see my screen now? Do you see the presentation?
No.
No. All right. Hold on. Here we go. Now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. A lot of them are hate and we need them. Work orders. Woohoo. So work order standardization. Work orders, what are they? So the purpose is very straightforward. It's to initiate a task, clarify what needs to be done, specify completion dates, and give special instructions as needed, usually to a vendor. How are they used? Work order request it's authorized maintenance basically, or a proposal request is usually submitted by a resident, board member, or a manager coming out of a meeting, something to that extent, or a site walk. Common requests, as we know, include things like broken gates, debris hauls, light bulb replacements, or anything related to units or the community as a whole. And why are they important? Well, they're critical because of the information they provide to everyone that touches the account or who needs information about the account or the history on it. They're also critical to the management of the association, because that's how we process the workflow, and that's what we're here to do. And also to make sure that the residents stay happy and our clients and boards are satisfied with actions taking place. They're also important because they provide one single source location of information, no matter who's looking at the account. So they're not stuck in somebody's email. They're not, you know, in a file somewhere, maybe a paper file, or in our storage office, or, you know, somebody's desk. We all can access Condo Manager, and so it's a really great single point of information. But Sarah, why do they need to be standardized? My process works for me. So just to clear that up, I get it. I'm guilty as anyone. But it is important that we all have the information we need, because ultimately it leads to satisfied clients. It allows us to grow and have efficient processes and information. And one thing I didn't put here, it allows us to get help on accounts, and do things like go on vacations, or you know, take flex time and not get bothered, different things like that. So ideally, anyone, anytime can open Condo, see all the issues and works in progress at a property, and instantly identify who dealt with it or who's working on it, if and when it's been resolved. And we all know that's not currently the case. So our current non-standardized process creates a lot of extra work for everyone. We've seen situations where jobs will fall between the cracks, or time's wasted waiting for responses, or we don't realize we haven't gotten a response because that email we sent didn't get boomeranged and it's just been sitting out there in la la land, or we have to search for information, you know. So it doesn't allow an assistant to step in and take over on a standard work order, or even hopefully in the future a virtual assistant who can also help with that process. So here at Collins, we generally use what we refer to as work orders in two different ways. I say generally because there is a wide variety how individual managers are using the system right now. So the first most common, straightforward, it's what I already talked about. It's just a maintenance request usually, you know, sync backup or a branch fall and something like that. The manager assistant sends a request to the appropriate vendor, and that's it. The second way right now the work orders are being used are actually proposal requests. A lot of times we will open up the work order system in Condo Manager and actually use it for an RFP. And there's a lot of variety there as well. So I'm going to touch on that towards the end here. So here's a slide, a lot of text. I'm putting it in here in case anybody likes to read, but don't worry, I'm going to read through it or touch base on the items here for you. Okay, so one of the problems when we talk about standardization is a lot of us have a lot of issues with how it works currently. So, you know, and we've considered those. You know, we have issues in the process where work orders are sent but never followed up on or closed out. So even though somebody did the work order like they're supposed to, there's no additional information. So it's still pretty useless. Sometimes they get sent to the incorrect vendors because they were either you clicked the wrong one or you didn't notice, or there's a similar name, or the name's different in Condo, or maybe the vendor you're using is not even in Condo Manager. So that's a challenge. Or maybe the email address associated to the vendor is wrong, so it never gets to the right person anyway. Sometimes they get sent for things that are not the HOA's responsibility, which causes trouble down the road with, you know, who's paying for what and some disputes. They're sent for issues maybe that your board doesn't want work orders done on until they have a chance to review it at a board meeting. Let's see. Yeah, that's about it. So, and it's understandable why some of us bypass the whole process at times, but the thing is a process, it creates a not doing it a huge gap in the history of information on account. How often has anybody taken over an account where you go to look at the work order history and there's like 5 work orders in there, even though we've had this account for years? I've had an account like that, and it's really challenging, especially when the person who managed it is no longer available. So what I find it happens most often on those accounts where we don't have assistance, because you as the manager know who your contact is, you know who your go-to person is, maybe with the landscaping or, you know, with trash on the side of the road. And it's so much easier just to shoot an email to that person and say, hey, can you take care of this? Can you look at that? Or even, you know, text them or whatever. And I get that, especially with Condo, it's slow. Attaching photos, I did not mean to do that. Attaching photos is really challenging. And when you do attach photos, they're low resolution and small, so they don't always show what you want, or maps or documents. The process it is slow and it can be challenging. But the bad part, like we talked about, then there's no history. So even though Condo Manager takes a little bit more time, the benefits of following a few simple steps allows for better account history, efficient communication, transparency for homeowners in the future as this web portal system comes into play, and yes, more help. Because if all that information gets logged in and we follow this process, it's going to be a lot easier to bring on a virtual assistant or assistant on the account to do the follow-up reporting, and you can hand it over. So all I've done here is tried to create a basic process, not to over engineer it. That'll work for everyone. It's going to need refinement. It's going to need some input as you use it. But the biggest challenge is discipline, the discipline of using the process and making sure when it is easier to shoot off that email, that even if you do so, you follow up and you go back into Condo Manager and at least put a placeholder in there of what you did, so you know that history. And then again, separate from that is the proposal request process using Condo, and I'm going to address that separately. In the past, a lot of us tried to use it, but it didn't work. There was an actual issue in Condo where it didn't print out properly or email properly, but it's working now. So I really think that we should all be using it as well, because it gives you that same kind of tracking and actually a lot of different cool tools that you can use, I think, to improve your process. All right, so that's the background. Let's jump into the process. So here it is. This is the really simple process. It's 5 steps. And if you just do this on each one, that's it. You receive the call, email request from the resident of concern, get details. You create and send the work order. You should send it to yourself, to the vendor, and to the requester using Condo Manager if possible. Boomerang it when you get it in your own email account based on its urgency for follow-up. So, you know, if it's urgent, don't even boomerang it. You can get the work order and then immediately call your vendor to make sure that they get it and understand what's going on, or boomerang it for a day, 2 days, 4 days, or like a week, if depending on what it is, you'll know. And then when that boomerang comes back, you do the follow-up. You check in with the vendor if you haven't heard from them. You follow up with the owner to ensure they're happy if the work's been completed. We're going to note the work and follow-ups on the work order within the work order, and I'll show you that screen in a moment. And that's an important step too, because that's really where the history comes into play. And then when you're done, you're going to close it out. There's a little button in that tab that I'll show you. And then that's it. And you've saved it. The history's in there. Anyone coming in after you knows what's happened. And anyone who comes in the middle can know what's happening too and help you. And then just a tip for those of you who don't know or are new to it, and I know this is old news to most of us, when those calls are coming in from homeowners or emails, and it's maybe a gray area, it's really important just to remember to let them know that there is a potential that they will be billed for the cost of the service call if it's an area that the homeowner lands up being responsible for, or it's a homeowner responsibility and not the HOA. It's always good to put that blurb in there. It would be really cool. Janine had an idea, even if when they're entering these work orders into the system in the future, Paul, maybe even like a little pop-up box that has that little disclaimer. But we'll talk about that later. All right, I'm going to skip over this. This is just kind of the detailed information about the work order. You can come look at it if you're interested. This is really the information you need to make sure that you're gathering in the work orders for the more detailed. The more information, the better, because it's all about communication. So get the information needed, name, location, ask them to send pictures if they can, contact number for follow-up, description of the issue and urgency. Try to identify if the HOA is responsible or what the issue is. One thing I put in here is when you do send that work order to yourself, I've done this at times because I have certain vendors that don't have email or don't use it. And so I just send it to myself. Then I call them, or I can text them photos. Or if it's easier to just send them the email with the map or photos from my own account, I do that, but I create the work order first. And then I think I've covered everything else. So now I'm going to go into some screens in Condo that are key. So if you send a direct email to a vendor not in Condo Manager, take a moment to log the work order, record the issue. I just recommend getting in the habit of using the system. The more you do it, the easier it'll get. It'll get secondhand. Make sure your emails in Condo Manager are sent from you. This is a recommendation. A lot of us have it set to no reply for when we do email blasts, but that really kind of clogs up the communication chain, especially if you're communicating with vendors or homeowners. If they respond directly to the work order request and it goes back to that no reply email, it can create issues. So if you need more information about that, you can talk to me after, and I can explain more what that is and how to fix it. You can type a message in the email being sent from Condo Manager also in the email screen if you want to add additional detail, but I recommend trying to get that within the work order. I do that for myself because it's a lot easier than have to click open all the attachments. I just put it in the actual email that's getting sent out from Condo Manager. Do your best to provide transparency and clarity. Let the homeowners know what's happening, even if you are having difficulty getting a response on an issue. And then note that in the notes, and we'll look at those tabs down here at the bottom in a second. And if you can give specific time expectations for completion or next steps, do that. Because as homeowners are going to have access to do this. Oops, hold on, Rhiannon just sent me a message. Did somebody need to say something? Oh, thanks, Rhi. Never mind. She was just saying thank you. All right. So because when you put the specific time frame and expectations in, let's say we're going to get to that point where homeowners can check those updates that Paul was talking about. That's going to be real helpful so they know what's going on and they're not going to be bugging you every day if they're not expected to hear back from somebody until the end of the week, for example. And so get to know these tabs in Condo and the work order system and what they do. You see them all the time, but have you looked at them and looked through them? Let's do that a little bit now. Okay. So here's the follow-up and notes tab, and this is the really important one. And as we get to know more about this web portal, this is the one that I'm hoping will show up for the homeowners. I don't think most of us use it that often. Some of you out there might, and if you do, great. But this is going to be that one-stop shop I was talking about, where you can see exactly what takes place on any given work order. So anyone can come in behind you and know what took place. If you click on the Add Note button, the big green cross, you'll get a pop-up box where you can put in some notes and say what the status is. And then make sure you click off that print on the work order, and you can actually print out a work order that you can put in a board packet or put in a unit file, something, so you're going to have that record. And this is also where you click off the work completed right here. I don't think you can see my cursor, but if you can, right here. And then that's what closes out the work order to show that it's been completed. So this is going to be your best area, and I'll show you why in the next tab how it prints out. So if you actually create a PDF or print out that copy, when I say print, I usually mean just a PDF anyway, since we're all online, you can see here on that printout, it shows all the follow-up notes and the dates that they came in on. So you're going to know exactly what took place when, what actions were taken. And if there's any questions down the road, you have that history right there. It's not buried in somebody's email who's no longer with the company, or who even is with the company. It's not buried in a file somewhere that you don't know where, and hopefully it was named correctly so you can search for it. It's all right there in Condo Manager attached to the account. So that's ideal. Moving on. If you click that work completed button, what you're going to find is it's going to automatically generate this email right here. I don't know if any of you have ever done that. It takes you to the email screen, and this is the homeowner's email address. You can use this. It's not required. If it's straightforward and easy, it might be a great way to close it out and let the homeowner know. So you always have the option of sending this or not sending this. You just exit out of the screen if you don't want to actually send it. So that is something that you'll have the option of using, depending on whether that's appropriate. On the next screen, this is the service request description that we all use. You should be typing in your description of the work order in this first box under the first tab, service request. Be as descriptive as possible. Put the main issue in that first sentence that shows on the main screen. So try to avoid doing something like RFP and then going down to the next line, because then what's going to happen is on this top screen, when we just get the list of work orders, you're going to have to like open each one to see, okay, well, what was that proposal request for? Or what were those general repairs for? Or what was that landscaping for? If you put that what it actually was specifically in the first line, you don't have to open all these individual work orders. You're going to be able to see them all listed here, like main water leak on Redwood Avenue, or proposal request for election rules. You know, you'll know exactly what each one was, and so you only have to open up the appropriate one. Saves a lot of time. I don't know if everyone knows that. And then on the following tabs for quote request or work order, each one of them usually has the option to just insert the service request text into that box, so you don't have to retype anything. So start here on that tab. Now I want to touch base on that request for proposal tab. So it's under quote request. It used to not work, but I tested it out and it worked for me. If you use it and it doesn't, let me know and I can work with Michael. So this is an example of how it works. If you have a proposal request that you know you're going to go out to multiple vendors on, I really recommend using this. You can put the full description of what you're looking for here in the main box. Here's also the little box, insert text from service request, like I talked about. And then you can list the vendors that you want to send it to right down here at the bottom. And then when you're ready, send quote request by email individually to each vendor. And so as we know right now, our vendors are very busy. Sometimes they don't want to actually send us proposals. So here using the system, you can still leave them there. You can click on decline to bid though. And then that way you know, and you don't duplicate who you've already sent it to, and you kind of get a feel for that. And then also, this is what it looks like on the email that they get. So it's a little different than a work order, the way that it looks. But the description is down here and it's similar. So it does what it's supposed to be doing. It used to not populate that information. And then here at the next page, this is some of your options that you have under the request for proposals. You can put that they decline to bid. You can also put if you receive the quote and the quoted amount. So you have a really quick area where you can eyeball what you've gotten in. Of course, it doesn't do any kind of apples to apples comparisons, but it's just one more place where you have one-stop tracking. You don't have to try to figure out who got what, when, where, and what the status of it is. And so that's it. The challenge is going to be going back to that simple process, is using it, looking for the pitfalls, communicating those to me so we can help design the system better, and then the system for follow-up and getting some assistance in there with a virtual assistant and follow through. But that is my presentation. Thank you.
Great job, Sarah.
All right.
Does anybody have any questions for Sarah, or any additional feedback, ideas?
I had a quick question. Is there a way that we can put maybe a deadline on any of those RFPs or anything like that, so the vendors know? Is there something that we could put a field that shows deadline October 15th or something like that?
There's not a field for that, I believe. I'd have to go back and look.
Okay.
So I encourage you to do that. But mainly you would put that in the
email?
text,
Okay.
in the body of the text. And then when you get the email, it's the same process. Email it to yourself and the vendor, and you boomerang it for the day
That
before that
timeframe.
deadline,
Okay.
or 2 days, so you can follow up with them if you haven't received anything. That's a process piece.
I'll also calendar it on my calendar, because that will pop up as a reminder where the boomerang will come out as an email and I just haven't gotten there yet.
Right. Okay.
So
Okay.
I'll also, if I have a deadline that has to be met, I'll put it on my calendar and then just have it send me a reminder,
Okay.
just as a backup.
For those that are interested in doing so, you can set up an infinite number of calendars. You can actually set up a calendar for each one of your associations. And then, you can put things like insurance renewal, annual meeting, all that jazz. And then you can share the calendar with your boards.
And if you do Google Calendars and you calendar your events, they'll send you a notification every morning with a list of what your items are. So I do that for board packets, agendas, so every day I know what I should be getting done.
All right. Well, Sarah, thank you very much for your excellent presentation. Again, to recap, the purpose of this is to get everybody on the same page as far as how we process work orders. I know it's been a big challenge for those of us that have, like Sarah said, take over an account and there's absolutely no history. And in the process of exploring the new web platform, one of the associations I tested, there was 0 work orders going back for many years. So that's definitely an issue, and it's going to be even a greater issue when we start rolling out the new web portals. So this is important stuff, and I appreciate it, Sarah. This presentation has been recorded. It will go up onto our YouTube channel, and it will be part of the training regimen, and it'll be available to you in the future to refresh your memory.
I wanted to say real quick that talking with Sarah, when I talked to her, I was telling her I worked at another company that used the system to where you update it, and if you continue to update the work order information and the homeowners have access to that, your number of emails and calls are reduced, because it takes time to direct them and get them to actually use it. But once they use it, that usually satisfies a phone call or an email they would have sent you. And I found a tremendous cut in my emails that I received. Just ask me, what's the status of this? What's the status of that? Especially and with boards. So it's a great process that really works and helps a manager out and their assistants.
Yeah, the upfront process that takes a little time to get used to will really result in dividends like you're talking about.
Yeah, it's kind of like the expanded agendas, the executive agendas that I always recommend. Where you actually expand out an agenda and you put your recommendations and thoughts into the agenda prior to it going to so that it goes into the board packet. They have the regular agenda, but then they already know where you want things to go and your recommendations ahead of time, and it just saves a lot of pain and duration of board meetings. It's a little bit of work up front, but it saves you time later, and also it prevents boards from spinning their wheels trying to figure out what to do when you already know what to do and you already put your recommendation in there. So it primes them to go in the direction you want them to go. So always look for ways that you could do a little bit of an investment up front that pays dividends down the road. This is a great example of that.
I had a question. Sarah, when you are sending the email and you're letting the homeowner know that this work order has been created and they've been copied on the work order, they have access to the vendor. Is that something that we want them to have? Because I have some overzealous homeowners or board members that might start going direct around you to the vendor. Is there a way that we can block out the vendor's contact information so they must come to me as opposed to going around me to the vendor?
Yeah, I think that that is an area, and maybe I can clarify as I create the process where you have to use your judgment as a manager. That's one thing that Janine does often, and I got that from her and working with her. I think just the name of the vendor sometimes can be enough, but maybe that's an email you send directly to the homeowner rather than copying them on the work order. That's not a requirement, but I think in some cases it could work. We don't have a set policy on that.
Are you referring to that final email that lets them know that the job has been completed?
No, I'm saying when I send the work order, you are copying yourself, you're obviously sending it to the vendor, but you can also put a homeowner there. And my question is, if I put a homeowner there to let them know, I've got this is what's happening, I don't want them to be able to go direct to a vendor. I want them to come to me until the web portal is up and they can check the status themselves. I don't want them to be able to go around the manager or the assistant and start going directly to vendors.
Sarah, can you clarify that? Do you actually CC the homeowner on the work order that goes out?
No, I don't, but I've seen that happen. I usually send them a separate email.
I wouldn't
So
I wouldn't send them the work order.
Yeah.
Maybe in rare cases,
Yeah.
I would.
No, I generally send a separate work order just saying work order number XYZ has been created and you should be hearing from Kurt's Plumbing. Please let me know if there are any concerns or problems with this.
Okay. All right. Anything else on this subject? All right. Thank you. I'm going to stop recording. Don't anybody leave because I have one last thing.